Oh dear.
That's a good blooper.
Stars shining bright above you. I breezes seem to whisper.
Hello, welcome back to my channel, View from Venus. I'm YTV. If you're new, hi, nice to see you. And if you're not new, hi, nice to meet you too. So today I'm very excited because I'm here joined by Neya.
Hi, I'm Neya. I'm from Australia, but I'm currently living in Myanmar since May 2019. I have my own YouTube channel at Neya, and I think she's linking it below as well.
Yeah, sure. Her channel is very informative. I came across her channel with Yangon tour apartment video, and I found that video very informative. So I watched some other videos too. So yeah, if you haven't checked her channel yet, you should go and check it out.
Yeah, thanks. Alright, so I think today we're super excited. We thought we'd collaborate and compare cultures. Obviously I come from Australia, which is very different to Myanmar, and there's different cultural influences. So today we're talking about
Dating culture.
dating culture. How interesting. I feel like no one really talks about dating culture.
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like there's a lot of things that I've picked up on from being in Myanmar that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was kind of the tradition. Because for me, I think dating is quite westernized in a sense. It's just it's like a movie, right? You just date people anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where shall we start? Let's start from the appropriate age of dating in Australia and in Myanmar.
Yeah. So when I was younger, I didn't start dating till I was 19. So I was a late bloomer because I think it's very subjective and based on the person. But I think people will start dating around 16 or 15, which is quite early. But I think it's because you go to co-ed schools and so it's co-sex. So there's both genders. So people kind of start to date a little bit then. Yeah.
Okay, so I started dating at 14 years old.
Wow. See, I feel like
Actually, it's not very common here to date at such young age.
yeah.
But anyway, I dated. So it's not allowed to date before finishing high school. People will be the society doesn't accept the fact that people date at such young age. They be like, oh, she is losing her goal and she's not gonna finish high school and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I was also very worried because my classmates and some of my teachers knew that I was dating that boy. So I felt guilty. So I was worried if they might tell it to my grandmother because I was living with my grandmother and she's conservative. So yeah, I was very worried, so I just broke up with him. But despite being forbidden to date at a young age, my grandmother or my great-great-grandmother, they got married at such young age.
Yeah.
My grandmother got married at 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
And my great-grandmother at the age of 17, I guess. So the more you get forbidden, the more you want to give it a try. So when the parents disagree with their relationship, they just ran away with their partners and got married.
Oh wow, that's so interesting. I think it's kind of, so for my parents, they moved to Australia when they were 18 from Malaysia, and so I think back in that time, for my parents and their generation, it was really common to get married quite young. But then because they had brought us to a new country, I was born in Australia, but they kind of want to make sure that you don't kind of stray from your path, right? Your goals, like you said. So they don't encourage you to date when you're in high school, especially in Asian culture, because they want you to make sure you focus on your studies and things like that. But no, I totally agree with you and I understand it. I think it's very similar in Australia. It's more of a cultural thing of where your background. So my next question is, I'm always interested, is where do people meet each other in Myanmar? Is it on dating apps? Do you go to a party?
I would say Facebook.
Oh, Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook is the most popular social media platform here in Myanmar. So everyone here use Facebook. So yeah, we just naturally meet our partners on Facebook because dating apps are not very common here. Because I myself just found out about dating app a year ago, and I was surprised, and I was oh, is there this kind of thing here in Myanmar? And so yeah. Dating apps are not common here, and mostly foreigners are on those kind of apps. Yeah.
Oh, so but then on Facebook, is it that you just randomly add somebody that you think's interesting, or is it you connect through different friends?
Yeah, I would say it's both ways. We add some people that we find interesting and start talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Because I feel that because Facebook, first of all, isn't really used in Australia how it is used here, because Facebook was introduced a lot later here. So when I was younger, like 13, I got a Facebook profile, but it was just for like our friends. We didn't really ever date in it, but I would say that we more use like a lot more now dating apps like Tinder and Bumble. There's like so many dating apps, but I think also we also meet in the community a lot. Like you go to school and you meet people through school, you meet people through like friends and going to parties and socializing, and work. A lot of people meet partners at work or university.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so once you meet somebody on Facebook or wherever, what is the next stages of dating?
Stages of dating here is kind of simple because when a guy likes a girl, he says "I love you" first. Yeah, and he asks the girl if she feels the same way. But we girls usually take time to give the answer yes or no. And some girls take like months, and some girls even for years. So once they say yes, once they give the answer yes, then they technically become a couple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so this is really interesting. So the guy like knows he's in love well before the girl.
Yeah, guys usually make a move. We girls just stay quiet.
But the move is to say I love you.
Yeah.
Well, so that's like really interesting. I don't know, because for like in Australia or like in Western culture, like saying I love you is like a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we would usually do is like once I meet somebody, for instance, like at a party, we start seeing each other, which means like you just chat, you go on dates, and then like it's kind of like you test it out, and then if you think that you're like working well, then you progress to dating and officially like being boyfriend and girlfriend. So like he or she will they'll decide, they'll be like, oh, okay, should we like make this official? And then they start being boyfriend and girlfriend, and then like maybe after a few months or like even a year sometimes, but then they will like both say I love you.
Oh.
But it's kind of like I think it's more like a journey where they take it together, like where they say like I love you comes with time. But it's interesting that like the guy will be like I love you, and then the girl, and then they just wait for the girl.
Yeah, and the dates come after saying I love you.
Yeah.
There is no trial period.
No trial period.
No.
Oh, that's so interesting. I feel like that's so intense.
Yeah.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
What do you prefer? Like,
to be honest, I prefer Western way of dating because loving someone is not that easy.
Yeah.
If a random guy just come up to me and say I love you, YD, and then I'd be like, what is wrong with this guy?
That's what I think. I think is that as well. I think it's very like, for me, I love you is like such a big commitment. It's like love is very complex, right? You can't just say I love you. So that's interesting. But yeah, I think it feels more natural in the Western way. But then again, like.
But
it's
yeah,
very interesting.
this is not for everybody. This is
Yeah.
just the traditional way of dating. But nowadays, everyone uses internet, so like it's more easier for the culture to get diffused. So yeah, some people follow the traditional way of dating, but some people like adapt to the Western culture of dating.
Very
So it
interesting.
varies.
Very interesting. It's very different.
So when you go on a date, what do you usually do in Australia?
Okay, so it's a range of things. I think that the easiest one is like going to dinner or going to lunch. People will go and do an activity, like go to the movies, maybe they'll go for a walk, go for a hike. It's always usually like something a bit more casual, nothing too intense, so that you can kind of get to know the person. And some people, like if they're not comfortable, they'll go on group dates, and they'll go like with their friends. Yeah. So I think it really depends, but usually I guess the most common ones are like eating. Yeah.
But here, watching movies at the cinema, it's like the most common thing. That's the only thing that I can think of when I go on a date.
Yeah.
So yeah, and drinking coffee and see the movies. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's interesting. I think also maybe I find when I like moved to Yangon, I was like, oh, there's not like heaps of activities to do sometimes, and that like are also sometimes affordable as well. I don't know. But a lot of people seem to come to like lakes to just hang out
Yeah.
and go walking and
Yeah.
just sit together. So I find that really interesting. But I mean, a movie date is I think common all over the world. People like to go to movies. Would you, for instance, like go over to somebody's house? But that's too much.
That is too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I think like in Australia, like just say I had met somebody and they asked me to come over, I would go over during the daytime. Like I feel like it's quite casual, but like usually it'd be okay. Like I think you have to gauge it by the person. But yeah,
Wow,
but
that's
people
really
would visit
nice.
each other's houses like quite early on, depending on how the person is. Yeah.
That's nice. So we don't have to think of where to go.
Yeah, yeah, and like, or you can just be like, oh, come over for a coffee, or like, come over for lunch, or things like that.
What do parents think about that?
So I think it depends on the household. Like I think in Australia, you kind of have a lot of Asian families, like me, where I was born in Australia, but my parents are like relatively westernized, but quite Asian as well. So if I was to bring a boy home to hang out quite early on, they'd be like, who is this guy? Like, let me meet him. Like, ask them lots of questions. But I think also like I have friends who are Caucasian and more westernized, and when they brought a boy over, it's like no big deal. The parents would just be okay with it. So it really depends, I think, on the culture of your household.
And also one thing here, it's also common to go to the pagoda with partner together.
See, that's nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's really
I just
nice.
remember that.
Yeah, the pagodas are nice. I would love to like go on a date to a pagoda, but at night time I think, because it's too hot for me during the day. Okay, so then my next question is dating a foreigner common here?
I would say it's not very common here, but also it depends on the family that you grew up in, because most Buddhism family wants to maintain their family tradition and most importantly their religion. So yeah, it's not very common to date a foreigner, but it's not forbidden.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone was to date a foreigner, that foreigner would kind of need to be open to being Buddhist, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. But it's good that it's like a possibility. And then actually, be interesting to talk about once you say I love you and you're a couple, when can you move in and like live together with somebody?
Living together. Actually, the living together is not very common here. The society doesn't accept the fact that you live with your partner.
Okay.
And yeah.
Before
and,
marriage?
Yeah,
Like,
before
marriage,
before
okay.
getting married. So yeah, and also it's not very common to ask for sex.
Okay.
Like until you reach the certain point where you
Okay.
build enough trust and have like mutual respect. So yeah, couples are also very sensitive about living together, kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is another question, but when you get married here, do you get like engaged first? Do you have a proposal?
Yeah, we do have
you do have
engaged
a
or a proposal first,
Okay.
then get married.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, well, in Australia, it's very common to like live with your partner before you get married or engaged. I think for us, like we kind of view it as it's a good next step to figuring out whether or not you should get married. Because I think for us, like it's like a test. Like, okay, like how do we manage living together and spending all that time together? And can we do it? If we can, if we really still like each other, then we'll think about getting married. So it kind of comes in like those stages. Yeah. And it's not like frowned upon. It's very normal.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so then my next question is, when do you meet parents in a relationship?
We don't meet the parents unless we're 100% sure that we're going to marry the
Okay.
person. So if a man introduces you to his family, then he must really want to have a future with you.
We would meet the parents quite early on. Oh, I guess like so just in the normal. So we would date, we'd see each other, and then we start officially dating. But I think in between, like before you kind of officially start dating, you'd meet the parents at some point. Anyway, Maybe it would be like within a year of probably dating the person, you bring the person to like meet your parents and get to know them and see if they get along. I think for us it's like we use meeting the parents as like another checkpoint of like if you would like want to spend the rest of your life with that person, like do they get along well with your family? Do your family approve? Yeah, like I mean for me, I introduced my boyfriend very early on because my family and I are like really close. It was just normal. But yeah, interesting.
That's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you find this video interesting and informative. So if you do, please give it a thumbs up and also please subscribe my channel and her channel for more and more videos. So okay, let's say this together. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3.
Stay safe and stay healthy.
Bye bye.
Good. Oh, wow. Don't worry.
Alright.